everyone, this is Monica from ksrdatavizon. So in this video, we'll see the top 10 Linux commands for beginners. Before that, we'll see what is Linux and why it has been used, right? So okay, let's get started. So, what is Linux? We'll see the definition first. Okay, so Linux is an operating system just like Windows, iOS, and Mac OS, which is one of the most popular platforms. So, where we already know, right? We have Windows, iOS, and Mac OS. So, it is Linux is just like same as those operating systems. So now, what is OS? OS is an operating system is software that manages all of the hardware resources which is associated with your desktops and laptops. Okay? Okay, let me explain in a clear way. So just like Windows, iOS and Mac OS, Linux is an operating system. In fact, one of the most popular platforms on the planet, Android, is powered by the Linux operating system, right? So we are using mobile Android mobile phones, right? So this is also powered by the Linux operating system. An operating system is a software that manages all of the hardware resources which is associated with your desktops or laptops. To put in a simple way, the operating system manages the communication between your software and your hardware. Without the operating system, the software could not be functioned, right? So if there is no OS, our devices are more or less like a no heart, right? So the Linux operating system comprises, there are several different pieces inside it, but we'll just go through only the things which are very important, like bootloader. Kernel is very important, and init system is also important. We have graphical servers, desktop environments, and most of the applications in the organizations are also being used in the Linux service by using the Red Hat application, right? So we'll see what are these distributions we have in the Linux, right? So we'll go to the next thing, why we use Linux. Okay, so why we have Linux, even though if we have Windows, Mac, and other iOSs, right? So we'll see here. So Linux is also distributed under a open source license, right? So it's also a kind of a free license we have. So open source follows these key tenets. So everyone says, right, this is an open source and the application, or this is an open source OS, right? So we'll see what this open source is the key, like why they are using it, right? So here we have some open source follows this key tenets. So they are the freedom to run the program for any purpose, the freedom to study how the program works and changes it to make it what you want to wish, right? And then the freedom to redistribute copies so you can help your neighbors. Another one is the freedom to distribute copies of your modified version to others, right? So let me explain you in a clear way. So this is one of the most questions like people ask why we use Linux, and even though if we have many operating systems in the market, why we should use Linux, right? So this question is frequently asked. So before that, let me ask you one more question, like does this operating systems are currently using really work just fine, or do you find yourself battling obstacles like viruses, malware, slowdowns, crashes, costly repairs and license fees, etc., right? So we have all these things on the OSs which we use, right? So if you struggles with the all these things like virus, malware, slowdown, crashes, costly repairs, license fees, etc., then Linux might be the perfect platform for you. So Linux has evolved it one of the most reliable computer ecosystem. Like we have very much of compatibility with this Linux operating system if we use this, and most of the companies, as I said before, most of the companies are also using this Linux operating system to run their applications. They have the desktop platform and they have CLI command prompt too, right? So that's right. So zero of cost entry, as in free, we have an open source. You can install Linux on an many computers as you like without paying a single penny for a software and the server license, right? So the cost affecting and all, you can search it in the Google, like what is it actually, and if we are using the distributions which are provided by Linux, so what cost is it actually? And we have most popular distribution called Red Hat Enterprise. So we have a separate company for this, which is maintaining, and most of the organizations have been used with the Red Hat, the next one. And we have, right, Ubuntu, CentOS, SUSE Enterprise Linux platforms, right? So we have all this. As I already told, like it's an open source, and the key points why it is called an open source and what advantages it gives us, right? And then here we have the distributions which have been proposed by Linux, Red Hat, Ubuntu, CentOS, and SUSE Enterprise. Okay, clear, right? So these are the things: Red Hat, Ubuntu, CentOS, SUSE, etc. So now we'll see the top 10 Linux commands, right? So you might be thinking about why I'm sharing this top 10, only these top 10 Linux commands options with their options, right? So, well, there are multiple benefits if you can learn this Linux commands and if you are having those commands on your tips. So, and one more thing, if you know the commands and if you are there on your tips, fingertips, then you can grab your manager's attention too by answering it, right? Okay. So the first command is cp, right? I think this option is known to most of them actually, in general also, right? Cp is like just for copying, right? So cp is copying, right? You're absolutely right. So it is used for copying a file, but in detail we'll see. So copying is, as I told you before, it is for use for copying cp hyphen p option, right? So hyphen p is, so when you use cp hyphen p option and will preserve with the timestamp. So when you copy the file, it will preserve with the timestamp. So it is very useful when you go back and see at what time we have did this, all those things, right? So it is very useful. Copy hyphen p option. So this is one of the command which is most frequently used. Next is mkdir. So mkdir is the option or the command which is used to, which is used to create the directories, right? And option we have hyphen p. So mkdir hyphen p option which copies the parent directories if it does not exist, right? So mkdir hyphen p. So here, if you have hyphen p option, so that it will copy the complete directory with the subfolders and the parent folder, right? So if you want to copy everything in a one shot, then use hyphen p option with the mkdir directory. Next is sep. The next command is sep. Sep command is most frequently used command, as you can see cp. But what is s behind the cp, right? So this sep is securely copying option, right? So sep command is used to securely copy files and directories from one host to another host, right? If you want to copy a file from one host to another host, we can use SCP. So here you might be getting a question, right? So what is CP? This is also used for copy. Then but there is no S, that's it, right? So the copy CP command is used within the host, right? So because we cannot use it for from one host to another host, where the SCP can be used from one host to another host, right? So it is securely copying command, right? So SCP is a secure copying command where if the hyphen I option is used, then you can copy with the passwordless. Because if you copy with SCP, if you use the SCP command, then it will you ask for the ask for username and password, right? But if you use the option hyphen I, then it will be, it will not be a prompting for username and password. It's a passwordless option. So guys, when you use scp-i option, then it will copy without asking you for a password. Let's say if you are doing it manually, it is okay, right? When you give the password, that should be fine. But Let's say if you are using this command with any of the scripts, like we have shell script, bash scripts in Linux, then how? So it will be, stopped for a while for getting the password to be entered. So in that case, if you use SAP-I option, then it will be a passwordless option. Okay. So this is about SAP. So can we go to the next command? Yes. Next is grep. So grep command is a command line utility for searching the plain text data set for lines that matches a regular expression. Let's say if you want to search a keyword in the Linux server XYZ. So if you use a grep command with XYZ, then you will be able to get like here. So grep keyword with any logs name or the file name, then you can grep that, right? So most of them they use this grep for getting the server list details or getting the particular error details from the logs. So if we use that grep word, then if you quote it your keyword like error, then it will be displayed with the error related statements on the file, right? So this is how the grep is being used. Then what is C option is doing here, right? So grep C option, which gives the count of a matching keywords. Let's say if we are using C option for the keyword of error in the app.log file, then you can see the total number of count. So how many error keyword is there in this particular file, right? So let's say if you have 10 words and 10 keywords in this file, then the count will be 10, right? So can we go to the next? Yes, this is find, right? The next command is find. The find command is one of the most powerful tool in the Linux system administration, right? So it searches for files and directories in a directory hierarchy based on a user given expression. Can perform the user specified action on each matched file, right? So this is the one, and the option we have is -m time. So if you have to find any file that has been modified for before last 3 days, then this is an option -m time -3. So let's say if your manager is coming to you and he want to know the files which has been modified for the last 3 days, then you can quickly say that yes, I can do it for you. So you, if you know the command find, right? So this is option find -m time -3, where you can find the last modify the files which have been modified in less than 3 days. It's not about only -3 is being used. You can say here as either 5, 10, 15. So it depends like what data you want, right? So this is how been it being used. Clear, right? So let's get into the other command. So this is how it has been in the command prompt. Okay. So the next is tail. So tail command gives you the output of end of the file. Okay. So here it is. So if we use tail -f option for particular uh, file name, so let it be a logs file. Okay. If it is a app.log and you are giving tail -f app.log, it will give the latest last 10 lines update along with the existing live update, right? So if I say here tail -500f and the file name, then it will give the last 500 lines along with the printing the existing logs. It will be printed continuously, and if you have to stop that file log which has been printing, then just press Ctrl C. Okay, then it will be stopped. So tailf is also a most frequently asked question in the interviews, like what command is used to grep the last 10 lines in the Linux, right? So you can give us this option like tailf has been used with the file name. So this is a syntax. Okay, so tailf hyphen f file name is the syntax. So the next is netstat. So this is also most frequently asked question in the interviews, like what command is used to get the list of ports which has been used. Okay, and the answer is netstat. Okay, if you want the ports which have been listened in the server, so this is a command which has been used, which is netstat, right? If you see here, hyphen p is an option, and in the command prompt, if you see here, hyphen n a p is the option. So if you give like this netstat hyphen nap with the grep listen, right? You can see we are using grep here with the keyword listen. So it will display the listen list with the ports and the parent IDs for that particular ports. Okay, this is netstat command. Coming to the next command, which is head. So just now we saw tail, right? So it's an opposite of a tail is head, meaning tail has given us the end of the lines, right? So what is head? Obviously, it is a beginning of the file, right? So head command is used to get the output for the beginning of a file with the option n, right? What is option n here? Right, if you see here, head hyphen n 5 file name, right? So hyphen n will print the beginning lines of a file. So if you give n option with a number, then it will display the first five lines. Let's say if you are giving a 20 here, and then if it will display the first 20 lines. Just as the same, if tail hyphen f, if you're giving the 500 with the file name, then it will display the last 500 lines. And as same, the head is also. So head is giving us the first 500 lines if you use, right? So head hyphen n, if it is 5, it will give the 5 lines. If it is 500, if it will give 500 lines from the top, which is beginning, right? So clear. So yeah, so these are the top 10 commands and just a basic introduction for the Linux and why we are using Linux, right? So most of the companies nowadays are using Linux. And one more thing I can assure you, that if you learn the commands of Linux, then it is for sure that you will get a job as a Linux administrator or as a DevOps engineer too. So any either the way, it is very useful for us to learn the Linux commands. At least the top 20 or top 30 commands are very useful and for us to learn. Okay, so I think it is clear about the top 10 commands and about a short introduction about Linux, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanking you all. Have a nice day.